this is Azar Majedi. The news about the mass protest movements in Iran is at the top of all international media. You followed the news, I'm sure, and you're wondering what's happening. Why has it spread so quickly? What do the people want? What are the realities of this mass movement, mass uprising? The international media, mainstream media, will give you some of the news. They will try to analyze it. They invite all the different pundits, mostly second generation Iranians who live in Europe or the US, or some people from Iran even, and try to have them analyze the situation. The picture they're giving is either not complete or is distorted. And what I like to do here is just to go a bit beyond this myth they put across and try to get down to the real truth. And try to see why this distorted image, this distorted narration is being put forward to the people. Why do I think I have the truth? As a seasoned political activist who's fought against the Islamic regime for the past almost 4 decades, as an activist who was present in all events of the 1979 revolution, the failed revolution in Iran, and have seen what the media can do, how media can create a leader out of nowhere, make a leader overnight of the most reactionary section of the society. I've seen how the strategies and tactics of the Western governments, the imperialist governments, have come through these media and have changed the whole scene in the revolution in Iran of the 1979. Having all this background, I think I can put the truth much better. I can have a better analysis of what the people want and what their movements and slogans mean. Because I share those slogans, because I share that experience, because I share that history. Nowadays, first they started saying it's economic, because people started their main protest in Mashhad, the second largest city in Iran, and then it went to the surrounding cities, to Nishapur, Birjand, and then also to Yazd. It was against inflation, against high prices. They talked because the price of egg and chicken has gone up so much, and people are there because of economic reasons, no political reasons. It didn't take one day that they say, wow, this time? No, they also have political grievances. And first, they tried to save Rouhani, the president of the Islamic regime, saying that the hardliners have organized these protests to topple Rouhani. I mean, what kind of crazy plan and strategy? Is this regime playing with fire? It starts these mass movements, then they started saying, they wanted to get rid of Rouhani or put him in his place, but then it got out of their hands. Okay, one more day, because it went so quickly. The events moved so quickly that they had to change or sort of bring new elements into their analysis and narration or narrative of this situation in Iran. Then they said, wow, now people are also shouting slogans against Khamenei and Rouhani. Yes, it was economic, but now it's also become political. This is the difference between now and 2009. And then they said, okay, as soon as people started to say death to Khamenei, death to the dictator, then they said, oh, they're against Khamenei. Rouhani is okay. They're against Khamenei. People came out to the street on the second day of the protest, first in Qom, the religious city of Qom, where Khomeini was born and all this so-called clergy lived there. People came down to the streets with many women and shouted, "We do not want the Islamic regime and free political prisoners." And they tried to sort of not pay much attention to that one. People started burning, bringing down the pictures and banners with the pictures of Khamenei, Khomeini, Rouhani, and then they tried to sort of make a diversion from all these and come to you and say, yes, people are against Khamenei, not against Rouhani. Rouhani does not have enough power, political, economic, or judicial power. He lacks power to implement what he promises to do. Otherwise, Rouhani wants to change. Rouhani is what people want. This is what we heard from French TV, from BBC, from, go online, search Google, Iranian protests, and then all the analysis you read is putting it in that context. That it's not that people want to topple the whole regime, they want Rouhani. Because this time they're shouting against Khamenei. The funniest thing that I've heard was, contrary to the 2009, where the demonstration was organized and was participated by the elite, educated urban elite, this time is primarily with people who live in rural area. You don't know what to should get from that word elite. That time was good because they thought that time was for the reformers, which wasn't either, but I'm not going to get into that. And this time, since people are against the Islamic regime, then the ruler people, they don't know maybe better. They're not the elite. They're not the educated people who would, if they came to the street, they would want Rouhani. And then another, they called these so-called ruler people Khamenei's loyalists, Khamenei's political base. Apparently, according to these very experts, pundits, the people who have come to the street now used to be Khamenei's loyalists. Let's get it straight out. We're talking about Mashhad, the second largest city. We're talking about Tehran. We're talking about Kashan, Rasht, Sari, Arak, Neyshabur, Kashan, many others. More than 60 cities have protested, and they call them rural people, whereas rural people have all the rights to protest, and if they also protest for a better life, they call these people rural just to put down their demands, just to put down their protest, just to look down and condescending tone about what they're shouting. These are the people of Iran. And they've come out to the streets, this time very clearly, without even fear, because if last time they were fearful of saying death to the Islamic Republic, and they would try to maneuver with the different slogans, this time they've come out fearless because they can't take it anymore. And they say, the regime is our target. They've said that. They've said in a slogan that the regime is our target. They've said we don't want Islamic Republic. They've said death to the Islamic regime. They've said both death to Khamenei and death to Rouhani. And one beautiful slogan, you know what it is that was chanted in Tehran? Reformist, hardliner, the game is over. No one really tries to dwell on this slogan, or the slogan that people says the Islamic regime is the target. They only try to say that people are saying death to Khamenei, so saying people want Rouhani. They think Khamenei doesn't allow the Rouhani to do what he's promised to do. If he's allowed to do it, then Iran is going to be paradise. People don't want anything else. These pundits partly are Islamic regime lobbyists. Know them, especially in US, some in England as well, and France. The rest are employees of the Western national media. What does that mean? Like BBC and French TV and so on, Deutsche Welle. What does that mean? That means they express the vested interests of their relevant states. French TV has to think about Total, if nothing else. They've just started having Airbus, Total, and all of that. They've just had dealings with Iran. BBC is well known for all of these policies of defending the Islamic regime. BBC Farsi is almost like the Islamic regime's TV, and BBC English the same. We've seen these. They have a strategy. Why do they all say the same thing? Why on the fifth day? It's very interesting. Believe me, I follow all this Al Jazeera, BBC, French TV, American TV. Go online and read, see what they say. The funny thing is, on the fifth day, that's yesterday, from yesterday, they started all talking about elite is not there, rural people are there, and they used to be the loyalists, Khamenei loyalists, and Khamenei's political base. How do they get these? How do they all are just come with the same line? Their strategy is clear. The Western governments, forget about Trump. Trump has its own agenda. The rest, they don't want to get rid of the Islamic regime. They want to tame it, but they want the Islamic regime. One of these pundits from US on French TV last night said, people don't want to get rid of the Islamic regime. Islamic regime is their best bet. Is their best bet for what? Best bet for a free society, best bet for a prosperous society, best bet for a society that people could live equally, for a society that offers freedom, equality, and prosperity to all, that women can be free and equal to men, that all people, regardless of their religion, their belief, their nationality, their ethnicity, their religion, whatever, they're all equal. The best bet for a society without corruption. The best bet for a society that doesn't have political prisoners. That no gender apartheid exists there? Is that their best bet? Or is the best bet for you who are making money? You live in USA and call that the best bet for the Iranian people? Oh my God. Another thing that I found amazingly interesting, I must say, and funny, was again bringing these concepts of Shia and Sunni. Iran is a Shia country and Shias do that. So these are all academic analysis trying not for people to see the truth of the matter in the Middle Eastern societies and in Iran. People don't give a damn about Shia and Sunni. Look what happened in Iraq, and it's not a rural area, it's actually very industrial city. The big industrial city in Iran, very close to Tehran. In Iraq, 3 nights ago, if I'm not mistaken, and Basiji, or one of these militia, Islamic regime militia, or someone from Islamic regime, in a van with 4 or 5 big speakers on his car, was shouting, Allahu Akbar, and was begging people to say Allahu Akbar. No one said Allahu Akbar. After a while, people started booing him. He said Allahu Akbar, people booed him. He said Allahu Akbar, people started shouting offensive words at him. And finally, they went and sort of made a circle around him, and you couldn't see the car and you couldn't hear the Allah Akbar anymore. The sound of Allah Akbar was buried under people's anger, people's frustration, people's chance of booing. This is the country you're talking about. Shia and Sunni, what is that? This is when academia wants to get profound and really gives you all these distorted visions. Iran is not a religious country. People in Iran don't want a religious government. Not only they don't want a religious government, they want to get rid of Islam. Women in Iran are the champions of anti-Islamic movement. They use in Iran the same way. Another point they mentioned is people are angry because of the Islamic regime, foreign policy, and military expansionism. Of course, people don't like that. And of course, people get angry when they see Islamic regime spending so much money. But that doesn't mean if Islamic regime changes its foreign policy, then Iranian people would say, bravo, long live Khamenei, long live Islamic regime. People in Iran never, for a long, long time, didn't want Islamic regime. It was fear, it was the brutal repression, it was the question of what, and they can replace it, or what other reasons that I don't have time here to get into. They lived with that regime. But now, finally, they've come to the streets with very clear message. We don't want Islamic regime. We don't, death to Khamenei, death to Rouhani, death to Islamic regime. With no hardliners, no reformists, we don't want any. But what these pundits are trying to do is trying to make people believe that Iranian people still want Rouhani. And that's their best bet. And another thing they do, very savvily, they try to scare people off by giving them the example of Syria and Libya. Syria, who was responsible? Libya, who was responsible? The West, the US, the state terrorism, hand in hand with the Islamic terrorism. We are going to make sure that we have no such dark scenario in Iran. Another point that's important to mention, even though when you look at the scene of Iran, because of brutal repression, you don't have any opposition political parties in Iran. Worker Communist Party or left part organizations cannot openly be active in Iran. Communism, worker communism, is a tradition in Iran. People know that. People know its activists, its cadres, its leadership. People of Iran want a better world, a society free of injustice, free of oppression and repression, free of inequality, free of poverty. They want a society where everyone is free, everyone is equal, and everyone is prosperous. And this is what people of Iran want. And whatever these pundits are trying to tell you, they're trying to make the Western strategy believable. Bring the Western strategy along with Islamic regime's strategy, implement that. Just the same way they did it in 1979. Just the same way in 1979 when the West realized that leftist ideas and slogans are dominant in the movement of people, they brought the Islamists into Iran. They brought Khomeini into Iran, and they imposed an Islamic regime in Iran. This time they can do it. This time they cannot tell people Rouhani is your best bet. He's not. Maybe he's this pundit's best bet. Maybe he's European Union's best bet, but not Iranian people. Please support the Iranian people's movement for freedom, equality, and prosperity. Thank you. تو آبو کریم جان تموم شد. نمیشنوم صداتو. آره خیلی وقته. چند دقیقه شد؟